Whipple Family Misadventures Book 10, A Circle of Love and Strength, Chapter 2.
Why are we going to stay with Melissa and Caitlin for the night?
Shadow asked, twirling pasta around his fork on Thursday evening as they ate dinner.
She didn't tell you?
Silver perked up at the mention of it. At least he seemed excited by what was going to happen. It made Wade glad they had invited both of them, as Shadow probably would have either refused to go, or would have been stubbornly silent the entire night, and Silver would have been extremely unhappy to be left out.
She said we'll do something fun.
It was that moment Wade realized neither Melissa or Caitlin had told him the actual reason for this visit, and decided to just keep eating his dinner. They would get around to telling him when they were ready.
I think Caitlin just wants to know you guys better. If she didn't already work at the station, I'm pretty sure she would be over here with Melissa.
Shadow looked up.
What are you going to do while we're gone?
Not much. So what do you guys think of almond milk?
Shadow only scowled, staring at the partial glass of milk in front of him.
How do they get the milk out of the almonds? Do almonds even have milk inside them?
No, that's not what they do. I'm not fully sure. I'd have to look it up. So, almond milk? Yes? No?
Silver kicked his feet lazily.
It's okay.
Has your stomach hurt since we switched from regular milk to this?
The gray hedgehog shook his head.
What about you, Shadow?
He also shook his head.
It's all right.
Wade was greatly relieved by that. There was something terribly upsetting about learning that he had been giving his kids food and drink that wasn't good for them, even if they had never actually spoken up about it.
Well, that's really good. Although in the future, you don't have to wait until we go to see Maddie to tell me about these kinds of things.
Silver looked up, his fork full of food frozen in midair by his powers.
Sometimes when I run a lot, like more than just a little bit of running, it makes my chest tight and hurts, and it's a bit hard to breathe, and I wheeze a lot.
Taking a long, slow breath, Wade clicked his tongue. Not sure what that could mean, but also knowing the issue was half the battle.
Okay, we'll let her know next time. Thanks for telling me.
Shadow blinked.
Wait, we're drinking this because
Silver told me that after drinking regular milk, that it made his stomach hurt. So we're trying this to see if it makes any difference.
The darker hedgehog narrowed his eyes.
But that's normal.
No, it's not. Food isn't supposed to make your stomach hurt, unless you overeat or something. Because that happens, you too might be lactose intolerant. It means that dairy makes you sick.
Does dairy make you sick?
No, it doesn't bother me. But that's okay, there's alternatives, you guys don't have to worry about it.
Are we going to see you tomorrow? Before we go with Melissa?
I wasn't planning on it. I have to go to work early in the morning like always, and Melissa will be here when you guys wake up like always. And then she'll take you guys with her back to her house before I get home, and I won't see you until Saturday. But would you like me to wake you up before I leave for work?
The gray hedgehog bobbed his head up and down vigorously. Wade felt his heart melt. He really had the best kids.
I can do that, buddy.
As soon as Melissa arrived the next morning and Wade was all ready to leave for work, he very quietly opened the door to the boys' bedroom and crept inside, going over to their bunk bed.
Hey,
he said quietly, reaching up to nudge Silver gently a few times. It took a moment, but he saw tired, heavy eyes peek out from under the blanket.
I'm going to work, I'll see you later.
Silver reached out and Wade gently lifted him into his arms, revealing in the warm, fluffy weight of his son, and held him a moment. In his opinion, one of the best things about having hedgehogs for kids was still being able to pick them up.
I love you so much,
he whispered, kissing the top of his head before putting him back into his bed and tucking him back in. Leaning down, Wade saw that Shadow was already awake and sitting up in bed, looking up at him in anticipation. He sat down on the corner of the mattress and wrapped him into a hug as well.
You guys have a good time, be good for Melissa and Caitlin. I love you too.
After making sure they both were safely under their blankets again, he stood up and left. Shadow was, as his dad had once said, waiting for the other shoe to drop. As promised, Melissa had brought them over to where she lived with Caitlin after they had lunch and explained it was called a duplex, or more accurately half of a house. Shadow had no idea why someone would want to live in a place where it was only partial, but decided that wasn't his business to ask.
If this place has a rule about no pets here, then I'm not sure if you're allowed to be here.
Shadow whispered to Silver and got a feeling of satisfaction when a look of horror came over Silver's face and he went hurrying off to ask Melissa about it, who only laughed and insisted that it was okay for them to come inside. After that, his brother seemed to be enjoying it. Melissa had a lot of video games that she let both of them play for most of the afternoon, even though she wouldn't let them play some of the more interesting ones, saying they couldn't play the ones called Halo or Call of Duty. Silver really seemed to enjoy one that involved a lot of dancing, and Shadow couldn't help but notice how much she encouraged that. When Caitlin arrived back at their house in the evening, it became a bit more difficult with her there. This obviously wasn't the first time Shadow had seen her, but he hadn't talked to her that much. He had been mentally preparing for it all day, but he still knew it made the state of his ability to talk extremely fragile. Thankfully, Caitlin didn't seem like she wanted to engage him in conversation. After she had been home for a few minutes, she and Melissa went into the kitchen to cook dinner for all of them, and then let him and his brother go back to playing video games. As they didn't have any video games back at their house, it made Shadow realize how much he enjoyed them and how they needed to get their dad to let them have some. As expected, worn out and wheezing from playing that game so much, Silver fell asleep on the couch later in the evening while Shadow still having his turn at playing one of the racing games. It was long before the usual time that they normally went to bed. Melissa just gently picked him up and carried him into the bedroom where they would sleep that night. Still perched on the couch, Shadow paused the game and sat up straight, waiting for the real reason why the two of them were over there, expecting that it would be coming any moment now. Melissa returned smiling.
He's out like a light. I don't think I have met anyone who sleeps as hard as your brother does,
she said as she came back into the living room. That did sound like Silver. At times it was frustrating because every little sound at night would wake Shadow up. Conditions had to be just right for him to be able to sleep, but Silver seemed like he could turn sleep on and off like it was a faucet.
Can I brush your quills?
Caitlin asked, holding up a metal comb with an eager look on her face. He shook his head. She seemed perfectly nice, and yet, he still wasn't sure if he could trust her or not yet. Melissa sat down to him on the couch.
Can I do it?
He really didn't want anyone touching his quills at the moment, but she sounded like she really wanted to. With a sigh, he muttered an affirmation and moved so he was facing away from her so she had access to the back of his head. Melissa was very gentle, using a metal comb to carefully straighten his quills and remove bits of debris that got tangled up in them. They had grown a lot ever since he had met Silver and their dad. It had taken time, but they were no longer broken in parts and overall felt a lot better.
You're losing quills.
Shadow picked up one of the mostly red quills that had come from his head.
These are baby quills, they're supposed to fall out. Do humans groom as a social bonding activity?
Sometimes.
That made sense to him, especially since it sometimes seemed like humans enjoyed doing it so much. At times, he wished it wasn't him that they always wanted to groom, but at least he had an answer for it.
Hey, I know sign language. Do you think you would be interested in learning some basic signs? That way, even if you can't talk, you can still communicate.
He thought about it for a long moment, as he had never heard of this before.
Is it hard to learn?
Caitlin scrunched up her nose.
It is an entire language, and learning a language is never an easy feat. The more advanced you want to get into it, the more difficult it would be. But if you would just want to learn some basic phrases, that's okay as well.
Learning an entire language that somehow was spoken with hands sounded difficult, and Shadow decided that he didn't want to try to do that, at least not at the moment. He was still trying to learn so many other things about living on this planet. He didn't feel that he could add something else, at least not at the moment.
Basic phrases.
That's fine,
Caitlin said. For the next 10 minutes she taught him several signs including help, dad, more, sleep, food, drink, yes, no.
There's more I want to teach you, but I think that's good to start with. If you try to learn too many at once, you won't be able to remember any of them.
Looking at his hands, Shadow was fascinated by what they had just taught him, repeating the newly learned phrases several times to himself. The idea of being able to communicate without having to use his voice was incredible. He would still talk and would hope that the paralyzing fear that sometimes came over him, that made him lose all ability to be able to form words and speak with anyone, would eventually go away, but he liked this. Then leaned back against the couch and closed his eyes, deciding that he was done with this conversation. At the moment he felt pleased with having learned a new and helpful skill, He didn't want to spoil it with those other horrible feelings. The two of them kept talking to each other quietly and he just sighed, letting himself relax into the soft material. Then he felt one of them nudge him and he opened an eye.
You ready to go to bed?
Relieved that she remembered from when she used to stay with them in the evenings that he did not want to be carried to bed unless he was already asleep, Shadow nodded and hopped off the couch, letting her lead him to the bedroom where Silver was sound asleep. Unfortunately, there was only one bed, but it was a large human-sized one, so it wouldn't be too terrible to share it with his brother.
Good night, Shadow. We'll see you in the morning. Our bedroom is right there if you need anything during the night.
Okay.
He whispered back, removed his shoes and carefully crawled up onto the bed and settled down next to Silver. He hadn't been sure what to expect when they had come over here to stay for an evening, but for what had happened, it hadn't been bad at all.